Hi friends, it's Sarah from Berry and Pine. I'm going to make some gingerbread crafts today. As always, please be sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications. First up is using a Dollar Tree dollhouse. You can see the edges. I just spray painted these. If you don't prime them, they could break off like that. So just FYI, I painted this one with a clear primer and then white. I'm going to be using honeycomb from Folk Art, and you can use pink or red for the doors. You can also add foam clay and create your own candies or gumdrops and put those along there. But I'm going to be making mine very simple and using red paint for the door and a white Posca paint pen for all of my accents. So this is the Folk Art in Honeycomb number, I think it's 942. Let me put my glasses on, you guys. I'm so blind. Yeah, 942. To me, this is the nicest out of the bottle color of gingerbread that I have found. It's not too dark. If you layer this, you will get a darker hue, and I'm going to show you that when I do the gingerbread men. But for this one, you can see I'm just using a foam brush and a small paintbrush to get into the details. Now, I didn't need to do the bottom at all because I'm going to be ending up painting that white, but I do suggest if you're putting a candle in it like I am for the windows, maybe open the door a little bit and paint that entrance part brown. So once I had the first coat of brown on there and it's dry, you can see it's not all the way covered, and I'm going to just add, not all over, but I'm just going to add a little bit here and there. For the Posca paint pen, I'm going to show you the shake and tap method a little bit later because it's hilarious. You have to do it all the time. But for this, I am not drawing anything. I'm not an artist. I'm a crafter. So all I'm doing is coating over their own raised pieces. So all of that is actually in the design of the house, not my artistic ability. And so for the smaller parts, I just got a paintbrush and dipped it in the Posca paint pen over there in the paint tray. Super easy and simple. Now the windows and the bigger portion did require 2 coats of the Posca, just not all the way, but to fill it in. And then I just added the little fencing details at the bottom and then went to the top. So I did add a little bit of frosting on each of the peaks and that middle peak and along the corners. And then listen, if you've got time or you're listening to a great Audible book, go ahead and do this part. I think it added a lot, which is highlighting each of the shingles. It took a minute, but again, if you're listening to a great book, it goes by quickly. So you can see I'm just touching up the areas that are light. I am leaving it. You can see the variations there. Once it's dry, I put on 2 coats of this clear sealant. I love this stuff, y'all know. And here it is. This is edited. I'm going to show you unedited in just a second, but this is in natural light. You can see like it looks really cool. I think this color is perfect. Now for the second thing, I'm going to use that foam clay to create gingerbread cookies. So I would say start this a little ahead of time if you want to do all these 3 crafts in a day like I did, because this one will take a day to dry the front and a day to dry the back. This is foam clay. I'll put a link to it below. It's similar to Crayola's Model Magic, but I like this better. One word of warning with this, you don't want to work it a lot because it will get kind of like stringy and too soft. So you can see I'm just using the table instead of both of my hands because I don't want to warm it up too much. I'm going to be using a cookie cutter. I just totally cut the clay with that, so I'm going to have to flatten it out again. But I'm just going to be using a coated cookie cutter in a gingerbread shape because I don't want to have to make my own stencil. So I'm just going to press this in. Now these are maybe 1/4 inch thick. You'll see in a second. I'll show you when they dry. They will kind of like shrink a little bit when they dry, but not as much as Model Magic, which again is why I like this versus the Model Magic. So you can see I'm gently pressing out each area, and you will see in the final product, my fingernails poked some of it. I learned that if you pull the cookie cutter apart, it'll just drop right out. But I learned that on the last one. So there's that. So I am going to use this clay and just combine it with new clay. Again, I'm just going to make 3 of these so that I can pop them onto the top of a tiered tray. That little gingerbread house is going to go on the bottom. All right, so for I would say you're going to need at least a day for the top to dry, and then I flipped it over, and so I'm just putting it on a flat surface coated with Silpat matte so it doesn't stick. With the extra I had on hand, I just created buttons. You can draw them on, but I just made them out of clay. So again, I'm going to use the same honeycomb 942 folk art for this. I painted the front and the back, and you can see how it's darker on that. I'm using 2 coats for this in order to get a full coverage on the foam. Now I'm going to use puffy paint. It's the little bottle from the craft store, and I'm not an artist. You can see I'm making a smile and some squiggly lines. I destroyed one. I just wiped it off and then added a little bit of brown paint and then did it over. So if you mess up, don't worry. You can just gently wipe it off and then fix your mistakes. Super simple. But I made 3 of the little gingerbread. I didn't put bow ties or bows, hair bows or whatever. You could make a cute little girl one with a hair bow, I suppose. But yeah, look at that. I'm not the greatest with the puffy paint. All right, I just glued on their little buttons and then sealed them. And you can see they're a little darker than my paint or the gingerbread house. But again, 2 coats for that one, 2 full coats. My final craft, I'm going to take the clear sealant that I use for everything, and I'm going to spray this jar from the Dollar Tree. It's one of their little glass fishbowl vases, and you can see it's kind of clear. I do that to avoid the chipping, and I think it works out the best. So for this one, I'm going to use the same 942 honeycomb, which I think is the best color for gingerbread, and I'm going to paint that on with a foam brush. And it's a pretty light coat all the way around, so you can see. This is what it looked like when it was dry. So I went ahead and added a second coat. And at the end, I'm going to show you a candle burning through it so you can kind of see. This is going to be another candy jar for me. So it's great. You can put hot cocoa in it and a cute little tied up cellophane bag with a bow. There's so many uses for these things. So if you have these little fishbowl jars on hand like I did, this is an easy craft. You can also create this and then glue it to a candlestick. And that would be a nice little elevated display. Maybe put a little bow tie underneath the head. Okay, so I just made a squiggly line on a piece of notebook paper and traced it onto the front of my gingerbread vase because I didn't trust my freehand ability. And then I'm going to use a Posca paint pen. You shake, you tap, and then you work through it. So I've had people ask me, I always have explosions with the Poscas. Yes, there is a method to the madness. You have to shake and tap away from your project so that you don't have to press, because when you press, it could explode. Now for the eyes, I'm going to do simple ovals that are kind of turned in. Again, I'm not an artist. If you are a paint aficionado, if you're a painter, go after it. I can't make 2 shapes the same size to save my life. So you'll see me, I make that one and then I'm like, oh, I have to make this one bigger. That's not right. And then I'll go back and forth until they're the same size. That's how I do it. But a cute way I've seen it is when people make the teardrop eyes. They're just so sad looking to me, so I'm going to do little ovals. Now for this one, I also used the pencil and traced on and drew on a smile so I could make sure that I didn't just freehand it. And then I'm just going to go over that again. Let me speed that up for you because it's just literally me making it thicker. But everything else, by the way, has been real time aside from drying time. Now for this one, I made a mistake. I always do this on the first one. I like to use the sponge daubers for the cheeks, or if you want a little tighter, tiny one, you can use the back of an eraser. And don't worry if it ends up like that. Just means that I didn't put enough paint on the edges, which I'll show you I correct. So how to do it the right way is make sure you get that paint on the edges, press down, and just kind of turn it a little bit. And there you go. Cute little fluffy edges. So I'm just going to do that on the original cheek that I messed up. And then now they match. I don't know. I try to look for ways to, be quick and efficient. And this is my favorite one. So I did little white reflections in the eyes, just really simple little dots. And you can make a nose. You can put a gumdrop foam for the nose. You can do anything you want. But I just thought this was a nice little way to use up these fish bowls. Again, 1 or 2. I prefer 2 coats of the clear sealant. And it's ready to go. So you can kind of see the candle through it. On the edges there, you can kind of see at the bottom, but to me, I'm not going to use it as that. These are in natural light. You can see there's no editing. That's why I love this color. To me, the honeycomb color from Folk Art is the best, hands down, gingerbread brown. And you can see these are a little bit darker in the natural light because they have 2 coats. Hey, guess what? That's it from me today. Thanks for joining me here at Berry and Pine. Please subscribe. Please turn on your notification. I'll see you next time.